Welcome back to another video. It's your boy Hoop Rat, bringing to you a comparison video between Isiah Thomas and Chris Paul. We're going to look into the details and see which one of the point guards is better. Comment down below right now who you think the better point guard is. Is it Chris Paul? Is it Isiah Thomas? Who do you think is the better point guard here? That all being said, cue the intro. Start the video, we're going to talk about Chris Paul and all the accolades that he has, and then we're going to go into Isiah Thomas. So to start off, Chris Paul hasn't won an NBA championship. I think he could have gotten close to the Clippers if they would have been able to finish off the Warriors, but unfortunately they gave up a 3-1 lead to the Warriors, and you know how that turns out. He has had Rookie of the Year, and he's been All-NBA First Team 4 times and on the All-NBA team 9 times, and he's been on the All-NBA Defensive Team 9 times. Chris Paul is a tremendous defender. He's someone who we saw at the end of the All-Star game this last year. He was one of the 5 because defense is what matters, and he helped their team win a victory. In terms of stats, Chris Paul, his points per game is 18.5. His rebounds per game 4.5. Assists, he's an assist assassin. The stereotypical point guard. He has 9.5 assists per game. Steals per game 2.2. Wow, I didn't even realize he was that high on the steals per game. And then blocks per game, he's at 0.1. In terms of his best season, Chris Paul, his best season, he's had 22.8 points and he's had 11.6 assists. And his percentages are very good as well. 47% from the field, 37% from the 3-point range. To compare this to Isiah Thomas has 2 championships, 1 Finals MVP. He's been on the All-NBA First Team 1 less time than Chris Paul, 3 times, and on the All-NBA team 4 less times than Chris Paul with 5. Unfortunately, Isiah Thomas hasn't been on any NBA defensive teams, either First Team or any All-NBA defensive team. I think we could see this maybe hurting his stock a little bit in the comparison when we decide who actually is better. In terms of stats, Isiah Thomas' overall stats are at 19.2 points per game. That's 0.7 higher than Chris Paul. His rebounds per game are at 3.6, which is 0.9 less than Chris Paul per game, who is at 4.5. Assists per game also are at 9.3. Very, very good stats, and shows that he knows what he's doing in terms of a point guard position. His steals per game are at 1.9. With seeing that, I'm surprised he never was on any All-NBA defensive teams, but in the 80s there were tons of great defenders, so I understand why. In terms of field goal percentage, Chris Paul has him beat in terms of that in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and free throw percentage. And the highest points per game, they're very close. So Isiah Thomas 22.9, Chris Paul 22.8. The one thing I wanted to bring up in terms of best seasons, there was one season where Isiah Thomas averaged 13.9 assists per game, and Chris Paul's best is only 11.6. Although tremendous, 13.9 assists per game is just such a high feat. I think we have to take that into account when we talk about best season and who has more assists per game. Although Chris Paul overall is at 9.5 assists per game, and Isiah Thomas is at 9.3 assists per game in his total career. The best season, Isiah Thomas had 13.9 and Chris Paul had 11.6. Now that we have that out of the way, if I had to give someone a point or decide who his career is better in terms of stats, they're very, very close, but I'll have to say Chris Paul, just due to the fact that he's been on the All-NBA defensive team 9 times and Isiah Thomas wasn't on it at all. That's a pretty significant amount. So if I had to give a point to anyone, it'd be Chris Paul. But just one story I wanted to share about Isiah Thomas. When they were playing the Los Angeles Lakers in the 1988 NBA Finals, in Game 6, Isiah Thomas ended up hurting his ankle in the 3rd quarter. Remember, at this point, the Pistons are up 3-2, but when he hurt his ankle, he had scored 14 points in the 3rd quarter already. And so he was having a tremendous 3rd quarter, but he went out for a little bit and then just to check his ankle and get that taped up and fixed as much as he could, of course. And then he came back on the court and he was hobbling around, and he ended up scoring 11 of Detroit's 15 points in that quarter to close out the quarter. When he came in, they were down by 8, and when he finished the quarter, they ended up being up by 2. I have to say this is one of the most tremendous stories I've ever heard about someone who's come back from injury and proven their dog and proven how much they want to win. Isiah Thomas was a winner, and he was someone that always would do anything to win. And I think this shows, even with a bum ankle, even with him literally limping on the court, he was able to put his team in contention. And even though they ended up not winning this game because of, some random call on Bill Laimbeer, who fouled Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It was they call it a phantom foul. No one thought it was a foul, but they called a foul on Bill Laimbeer that night. And so because of that, they ended up losing that game. And, with Isiah Thomas's bum ankle, he wasn't able to really do anything in Game 7. So they ended up losing that series to the Lakers. But overall, Isiah Thomas was able to get 2 championships during his career, something that Chris Paul hasn't ever been able to do. Don't get me wrong, Chris Paul has gotten close. There was a time when he was on the Rockets and they almost beat the Warriors, but then, they went 0 for 30 or however many they shot that day from 3, so they didn't end up winning at all. They ended up losing to the Warriors, and the Warriors ended up going to the championship and winning the finals. Chris Paul was injured during that series, and a lot of people think if he wasn't injured, they would have beat the Warriors that year. But, that's for another story. So getting back to the comparison, if I had to say one person who was better, I would have to say Isiah Thomas. There was just so many people that would say how good of a handle he had, how much he changed the league, how much, he made a small man important in the league. I think he was one of the first people that was, a dominant point guard at his height. With just being 6'1", he was able to do so much in the league. He went through Jordan, he went through Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics. There's so many people that he was able to beat on his career, and I don't think if he would have had those people in his way, he would have even won more championships, or maybe even would have won 3 if he wouldn't have hurt his ankle during that series. So with that being said, just because he's had these championships and the success he's had in the NBA, I think you have to say that he's a better player. He's done so much more than Chris Paul has. I think Chris Paul, don't get me wrong, tremendous player, but I have to say Isiah Thomas is better on this day. Comment down below who you think is better. Do you think Isiah Thomas is better? Do you think Chris Paul is better? Have you even watched Isiah Thomas very much? I've seen a lot of his clips when I watched the Bad Boy Pistons, so I've seen a lot of his clips and watched a lot of his gameplay. But comment down below who you think is better. As always, remember this is just my opinion, what I think about the game. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the video out. And remember, if we get 100 likes in this video, I'll start to do a face reveal. So if you want to see that, drop a like on this video. And as always, I'm Hoop Rat.